This slideshow will introduce you to the beginnings of civilization. The beginning of civilization was marked off by the development of architecture. In the Paleolithic period, it was a time of food gathering. In the Mesolithic period, we saw intensified food gathering and the domestication of the dog. In the Neolithic period, we have further domestication of animals and a shift to food production. Now, why would man wish to begin to live together? To make life easier. Now, what's easier, food production or food gathering? Now, when you hunt animals, what do they tend to do? They learn not to hang around. Think about the beginning of deer season. The day before, you see them everywhere. The day it starts, you don't see them at all. Now, man was able to shift from being nomadic and settle down with the age of food production. Now, what's a major benefit of man living together with greatly increased food production? You see the answer in today's society. It made it possible for members of the group to devote themselves to activities other than food gathering, such as thinking about man's place in the universe and the development of a symbolic language to relate these ideas to the group through ritual, art, drama, philosophy, myth, and religion. Jerry Brown, who is now the mayor of Oakland, was former governor of California, ran for president, spoke about Thomas Jefferson, who visualized the formation of our country, where it started with them practicing the commerce of war, and his ideal was that we would eventually be able to practice the commerce of music, dance, and art. So it's 7 generations later than Jefferson. I think it's about time we focus on art rather than war. It seems we haven't made a lot of progress considering many of the pursuits that mankind devotes themselves to today. Now, who do we associate with the first writing? The Egyptians. But in truth, Mesopotamia beat the Egyptians to writing. Evidence in Jericho indicates that it was invaded by Egypt before its more famous invasion. Rather than being totally parallel developments, one may have influenced the other. Now, what is Jericho famous for? Joshua from the Old Testament, who captured and burned the fortified city. This is a reconstructed plaster skull from Jericho that dates from 7000 BC. Now, under the polished plaster floors of Jericho were the graves that contained their ancestors' bodies, but the bodies were generally buried headless. At death, these skulls were removed, at which point the skin and the flesh were stripped off, and then they would use the skull as an armature, as it were, and add plaster to it to model as convincing a portrait of the person as they could. Shell inlays were used for the eyes, and this was a unique creation of Neolithic man. Now, what do these skulls indicate? Some kind of belief in life after death, if only in the memories of those still alive. The earliest buildings and houses of that time were circular, with the walls sloping inward, forming a beehive shape. There was room for some 3,000 inhabitants in Jericho at its earliest stages. Now, what does the Great Wall of Jericho tell us with its fortress-like construction? That this town or community was not unique if a group of people this great in number had to be concerned about the defense of their community. At least 19 levels of Jericho have been discovered, dating from 7500 BC all the way up to 1600 BC, the Middle Bronze Age.